Hey guys, Tommy Kerrigan with Tommy Untamed. We've got a great show coming up. Thank you for watching. What's up, guys? Thank you for watching Tommy Untamed. We're going to take a quick break and give a shout out to the sponsors who support the show and make it possible. The world's smartest investors are not buying oil stocks, they're buying mailbox money or oil royalties instead. I'm talking about passive income that shows up month after month, starting with as little as $25. Visit KerriganOilBoom.com to discover how to tap into monthly royalty checks from America's most productive oil basin. You don't need to be wealthy or connected, you just need a regular brokerage account. That's KerriganOilBoom.com to learn how you could start collecting oil royalty checks every month. Heaven's Harvest Prepper Food, 72 servings per pail, 25 years shelf life. I've had the owner Clayton on the show before. He's a God-fearing, America-loving patriot. Get one of these, get a couple of them, throw them in your basement. It's good to have it, not need it, than to need it and not have it. If you don't want to do that, you can get their seeds. You can plant your own garden, so you don't even have to keep buying them. You can just get the goods and start your own, or you can even get freeze-dried fruits and vegetables like bananas, apples, strawberries, and raspberries. They support the show. It's an honest product. It's a good safety measure to have, and they keep my show free for you. So I'd implore you guys to please go to heavensharvest.com, use the link in the description, promo code TPC.
Higher ultraviolet exposure is associated with lower mortality. The United Kingdom is a high latitude and low sunlight country. Researchers there collected data on over 360,000 participants in a study of UV exposure via solarium use. When compared with non-users, solarium users had 15% risk lowered of all-cause mortality, 23% lower risk of cardiovascular mortality, 14% lower risk of cancer mortality, and a 12% lower risk of non-cardiovascular, non-cancer mortality. In other words, all other causes. Quoting the researchers, our study adds to the growing evidence that the benefits of UV exposure outweigh the risks in low sunlight environments. A link to the original publication is available in the box below the video. Get some UV light this winter. Immerse yourself in the tranquility of the blue. Visit a Blue Room soon. www.blueroom.com.
And before that, I was a cop and detective and school resource officer and undercover narcotics officer in Provo, Utah for Provo Police Department. And then I moved home to Arizona and ran for sheriff, and I was elected miraculously. It was a crazy election. I mean, I hadn't even lived there for 12 years. I'd never worked in government or law enforcement in my hometown. But my dad had been an FBI agent there for about 25 years, and he had a good name recognition. I had name recognition in sports. I was an all-star athlete in Safford, Arizona, at Safford High School. And it was a dream come true, being sheriff in my hometown. And then in 1994, I had always dedicated myself to the Constitution. I had all my deputies trained in the Constitution. And I issued a pocket constitution that I made myself because the others that I found around the country were not big enough to fit over they were too big to fit over the flap on the uniform. So I made my own. And then 1994, I became the first sheriff in American history to launch a major lawsuit against the federal government, the Clinton administration, no less. So it was a real David versus Goliath story. I had 6 other sheriffs join me in the lawsuit from across the country. And we took it all the way to the Supreme Court and we won. It's the most powerful 10th Amendment decision in the history of America. And it is one of the most powerful cases that Justice Scalia wrote, that he said was one of the most powerful and important cases that he ever authored. And I spent a lot of time going over the case, and I put the highlights in this little booklet. Fits right in your shirt pocket. It's only about 15 pages long, and every American home should have that book in it. And if Tommy, if this decision had come out within the last few weeks, few days, few months, the patriot community would be going crazy over it about how this has defined federalism, diminished the role of the federal government because we sued on the overreach of government, and that's what we won on. The federal government, quote, the states are not subject to federal direction. The state legislatures, same thing. The state legislatures are not subject to federal direction, end quote. Wouldn't you love everyone to know that? Wouldn't you love to know that the chief law enforcement officer, the CLEO in every county is the sheriff? That's in here. And it says the Constitution protects us from our own best intentions. Folks, everything in here is absolutely a milestone. This whole thing is a seminal moment for American history and American liberty. And you will not believe, I've had the people who actually read it will always write me back or call me and say, "Are you sure that thing really, that case really says all that?" I said, "Look up the case on your own, man." Yeah, it does. And it is an absolute miracle, the most powerful 10th Amendment state sovereignty decision in the history of America.
That's why. Yeah.
And yeah, the miracle keeps going.
Could you maybe explain in a little more detail, not only for my audience but for me, because I've only learned it in the last couple of years. I'm 34 now. I probably should have known it a lot longer. That the sheriff
Mhm.
really is like the buck stops there. Like it's something that I don't know. I guess like the natural progression of thought goes, you're like, yeah, there's like state senators, state legislators, and you go up to the House of Representatives, and then senators, and then I suppose department heads, secretaries, undersecretaries, and then top line of succession, POTUS, VP, Speaker of the House, SecDef. That's and I don't know if that's a failure of education or just a failure of my own ignorance, but I didn't realize just how much authority sheriffs have, for lack of a better word, in their own fiefdoms. It really is
Authority
the
and
final
power.
say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Could you explain
Yeah.
that a little more? Not only for my audience, but also for me.
Yeah, of course. Well, first of all, we need to remember, where does all power and authority come from in America? Okay. And you were kind of going through a pyramid in your question. You were kind of going through a pyramid of power, and it's usually a triangle. Okay. I can't make a triangle very good. It usually looks like a heart. But uh, of all governments throughout history, it's always been a triangle of power. Up at the top is the king or the dictator or the president, and then they have some sort of parliament or Congress, and then it goes down to the states and the governors and the state governors or the state legislatures, and then that goes down to the counties and cities and the people. The people are usually last. In America, you turn that triangle upside down. So at the top is a straight line all the way across, just like this. This is the power source in America, and it's the people. The people are at the top in our government, and most of us don't get that because Congress and our leaders have stolen power and stolen authority that we never authorized. And in America, we the people, the first three words of our Constitution, we the people bestow and delegate and authorize all power and authority to our servants, to our our servants, not our tax masters, but our servants. And we tell them, and the sheriff is the only elected or appointed by the people, by, for, and of the people. The sheriff is the only law enforcement officer in this country that is elected or appointed by the people. And so therein lies his power because he directly reports to them. He doesn't have another boss. He doesn't report to a committee. He doesn't report to the mayor, the county commissioners, the county attorney, or to the governor. He reports only to the people. And therein historically lies his power. Because if you look at the last 1,000 years, the sheriff goes way back over 1,000 years in old Anglo-Saxon law, and he was always the ultimate power and ultimate protector of the people, and he is today as well. So the Supreme Court case reinforces that, And the Brady bill was the one that we sued on. And the Brady bill was the first time in history that actually commandeered. And in fact, the case is nicknamed the anti-commandeering case. And who was the federal government trying to commandeer? The sheriff, to enforce gun control law known as the Brady bill. Now get this, Tommy. In the Brady bill itself, it threatens to arrest us if we fail to comply. Whoever knowingly fails to comply is subject to a year in prison, a $10,000 fine, or both. Now, can you imagine the federal government, who has no authority over your sheriff whatsoever, comes into the state and says, you guys are going to do this for us. There's no money, there's no funding, there's no grants. It's just that if you don't do it, you could go. And so I said, there's no way we're putting up with this. It says my internet.
No,
okay.
You're good. Keep going.
I think we're good. And so there was no way I was going to put up with that. And none of the other sheriffs in Arizona liked it. There's only 15 counties in Arizona. And 13 sheriffs were at this meeting when the BATF agents came and told us what we had to do for the federal government. And there was so much cussing. And it wasn't me. I was the youngest sheriff in the state at the time. And I wasn't pushing my weight around, but I knew the Constitution. And so I challenged the BATF agents. I said, you guys know that we don't work for you. And you can't tell us what to do. And he even responded with, well, you would think that, but Congress passed a law. And I said, I don't care if they pass 500 laws. You can't hire me, you can't fire me, and you can't tell me what to do. And the sheriffs just all shrugged and they shrugged. But the sheriffs were really ticked. But by the end of the day, they all acquiesced. And they said, well, they kept saying, you can't fight City Hall. You can't fight City Hall. And I just said, who wants you to believe that?
Yeah.
City Hall.
You
can't they're not
fight
a boss.
them.
So anyway, it ended up going to all the way to the Supreme Court, totally miraculous, written and authored by Justice Scalia. And we won a 5-4 split decision. And it is just something that everyone has got to be familiar with, especially sheriffs.
Yeah. No, you can't fight city. Yeah, that's exactly something someone would say that doesn't want to be.
Yeah.
That's you can't fight Tommy. You can't. No one's ever won. It's like, well, who's saying that? I think Tommy's saying it. It's kind of BS, man. It's a little complicit.
Yeah.
To the kind of being that final law of the land. How does that apply to, from theory or discourse, what we're doing right now to, well, I guess in your example, but currently, so for future listeners, it's March 2025 with the deportations, right? Because it's Trump, and I like Trump. He came out of the gate swinging. I think Tom Homan's great. But it seems like mathematically, you just add it up. It doesn't seem like it's going to hit really, if the real reason behind it, aside from, a drain on social programs or, crime against citizens, specifically, normally rape and murder against women, but it's also, the swinging of elections in very critical points. You have to respect them. It's a brilliant move to import people to these tiny, inflection points, these tiny stress points,
right.
And you have to, in terms of like logic and rationale, you have to, respect your enemy, but nonetheless, it is what they're doing. And Trump's in office, but in 4 years he's out. It's just what it is. And if he doesn't deport a meaningful percentage, not a token, promises made, promises kept thing, but a meaningful percentage, I don't think it's that far out of the realm of possibility to say the 4 years will come and go, and then we will keep what seemed to have been an almost uninterrupted slide into Marxism, communism, whatever you want to call it, over the last 50 to 100
No question.
years.
You're absolutely correct.
So how does he dial it up? Do you need I know logistically, Eric Prince, founder of Blackwater, offered Trump, said they could do $500,000 a month with a fleet of 1,000 planes and 1,000 lawyers. How do they realistically? And I hope they do. I legitimately hope they do.
Yeah.
How do they do that? Is it a legal thing? Is it the arrests, or is it the physical detention and exporting infrastructure that's needed?
Well, depending on the severity of the crimes committed by the illegal aliens, it falls into all of those categories you just mentioned. But quite frankly, I've said this ever since Trump got elected and started, and that he promised to do deportation, that there would be a huge program for deportation. And he pretty much made it clear all along that Tom Homan would be returned to that position. And I've met with Tom before, and I've been texting him since he took over ICE. And I have said on over 100 different shows since Trump got elected, and I'll say it on your show right now. If the sheriffs are not involved in this, if we, the people, and the sheriffs are not involved in the deportation, it's not going to work. Okay? It's not. The federal government, first of all, doesn't have enough intel and knowledge of everything happening in the 3,100 counties in this country, but the sheriffs do. And the sheriffs know their county, and they know where cartels have set up shop, and they know where the international terrorist groups have set up, and they know where the Russians have set up, and they know where the Chinese have set up. And all of those groups have infiltrated our country during the last 4 years, 4 or 5 years. They have. Everybody knows it. As soon as Biden announced his open borders, I said, well, that's going to bring in terrorists. And it's going to bring in so much crime and chaos that we're not going to be able to handle it. Well, of course, all governments need to be working to reverse this. And first that needs to happen is to stop the bleeding. And it looks like they've done that at the border. They've stopped it. It's numbers, infiltration is down about 90%. And so people who wanted to come here before now don't, because they know Trump means business, and they know that Biden was just the opposite. Come on in. You alluded to it just a few minutes ago, that what were they bringing them in here for? And it was to get registered to vote. That's why the Democrats are so pissed off about all of this right now. They don't want to lose the 20 million that are here that still need to get registered to vote. Has this happened before? Yes. Under the Clinton administration, illegal aliens were coming in, and they made sure that they got registered to vote. Some states are actually giving them driver's licenses and then registering them to vote as soon as they get a driver's license. And so this has happened. And there were even sheriffs in some states that cooperated with that. Now they've got this huge Frankenstein monster in their counties that they've got to get rid of. And when you consider if the voters go back to vote, which they will, some of these sheriffs are up for re-election in 2 years, in about 18 months, actually. And so the community, the people are going to look at, did this sheriff help reduce crime while he was in office the last 4 years or the last 2 years? And so this is really going to hurt sheriffs, and a lot of sheriffs are getting on board. First of all, each sheriff in this country has a detention center or jail that he runs or is a part of running. And so just so everybody knows, there's 3 states that don't have sheriffs at all. Connecticut voted the office out of the state, out of existence in the state,
Really?
about 30 years ago. And Alaska and Hawaii never established the office. You have some good sheriffs there in Maine. We need to get all of them educated better. But every sheriff in this country has a responsibility to participate in deportation to reduce the criminal element within their counties.
They also just know the terrain better, right? I mean, it's
Of course.
easy, and I know I often do it. It's easy to kind of allude to the DoD or the intelligence community, this
Mhm.
omnipotent intelligence, and when they want it, I mean, I've interviewed a lot of Delta Force guys. It's like, yeah, if there's a target in the world that you need, yeah, you throw in Delta Force. I mean,
Right,
they've each got like $10 million of training, but you have a limited number of Delta Force. You can't use Delta
right,
Force to do traffic stops, right? So you
right.
can apply extreme pressure where it's needed, but you can't do it everywhere all the time. And in the same sense, yes, there is, if you were to look at the scope, if we were able to peek behind the curtain of classified satellites and reconnaissance and, SIGINT, ELINT technologies, the NSA, I'm sure it would melt our faces off. But
Yeah.
those
And
are for near peer competitors. Those are for, I would imagine there's some level of that security around DC during the State of the Union. But it's not happening at, registering every illegal immigrant that lives in a nearby apartment complex. It's just not. It
Yeah.
can't. It's just there's too much going on in too many places. So because of that, you do need sheriffs. Now, I would imagine this is something I've looked into precisely 0%. So I'm sure I'm just talking out of my ass here, but I would imagine they would need to be
Yeah.
contacted or asked by DHS, CBP. What would their ICE? What would so you're saying they have to get involved? Are they not currently involved? Do we not know that? Is that what?
Oh, yeah.
Where's the marriage between? How do we make it happen?
The good news is there's lots of sheriffs involved now. But if you look, and the reason I said that there would be a huge majority of sheriffs helping with this, do you remember the map after Trump got elected? How much they colored it red and blue by county, county by
Yeah,
county
yeah,
across the entire country. 80% of the counties in this country voted for Donald Trump.
yeah.
That is a huge landslide. That is absolutely astonishing. Well, you would think in every one of those red counties or that went red that they would that the sheriffs would want to participate and help because the mandate from the people was pretty clear, and people didn't like this going on with the murders and the rapes, as you mentioned earlier. And so I put out everywhere, and we sent out emails, and we were on, like I said, hundreds of shows about this. Steve Bannon really put this out, and he told me that he gave some of this information to Trump. I gave this information to Tom Homan, and we had Texas sheriffs calling and saying they wanted to help. We had sheriffs from all over the country, and then something just happened a week ago, and that is we saw about 2 weeks ago where some sheriffs in Florida said they were not going to help. Some of them were Rhino Republicans, and some of them were Democrats. And we thought, well, okay, but we're still going to get about 80% of the sheriffs in Florida that we're going to help. Okay, good. However, the Sheriff's Association of Florida called a meeting with the governor, and they all sat down and hashed this out. Now, all 67 sheriffs are on board, all of them in Florida. That's huge, Tommy. That's really huge. And they're setting the example for others. We have sheriffs in New York that want to help. There's not as many as we need. There's sheriffs in California that want to help. And Texas sheriffs were way on board before Trump even got elected. So we have sheriffs in Iowa, Idaho, some in Oregon and Washington. It's just everywhere. So I think this is going to really help. And I know for a fact that ICE is contacting sheriffs and sheriffs are contacting them. And like Sheriff Bob Songer in Klickitat County, Washington, he notified ICE that I have your number on speed dial. Please put my number on speed dial and I will help in any way I can. That's what we need. And that's what's happening.
I guess, and what I have a lot of criticisms with the current administration, but that's because I want it to work. This isn't some like
Yes.
hey, I want it to work. It's the same reason I criticize myself. I completely this is episode 1700. The same way I push myself forward every day. I completely forgot 1700. Congratulations, you get one of the big numbers. Every day I'm like, okay, push forward. You hit this many subscribers, hit more. You can bench press
Yeah.
this much, hit four. So it's not a disapproval or a hatred. It's a sharpen it, make it better, make it more accurate. So
Right.
I guess that's how I look at a lot of great things. I'm happy as a pig in shit, right? I mean, Marines to the southern border, 93% deportation drops,
Right.
dissolving and gutting USAID. I'm all for it. I want more of it. Fantastic.
Um,
Um, but this will be a brief mirage. I know we're right at the beginning, so it still feels like it's like, oh, Trump's in.
Yeah.
But it's gonna go by like that. It's just gonna go. I mean, it was just yesterday Biden got inaugurated. It was just yesterday I was in high school and I'm watching Obama get inaugurated. It's just yesterday I was watching the invasion of Iraq as a kid on TV. Like it goes by quick. So my point is
You, yeah.
if you don't fix the voting rolls, the voting machines, the mail-in ballots, as well as because there's multiple different nodes on how to cheat it. You can glitch it, You can do
Yeah.
3 weeks accounting. You can do, there's no, double verification, no ID. One of the glitches or vectors of attack is having illegal immigrants. So all of this, so what's the importance of all of this? Why can't I be happy with what he's done already? Because this, granted, it's bigger picture, it's longer term, much like tariffs are to induce manufacturing and fabrication of factories here, and that takes decades, but it's something you do for the long term.
Right.
If you don't fix all this now, we could have like the best 4 years ever. It really could just be like the best memes, like the best, just like Trump, Vance, sure. It's going to go by very quickly. And if these
Yeah.
things aren't removed, there is a momentum right now that he got a mandate. He got really a mandate from heaven last summer. There's a
Yeah.
momentum. You have to strike while the iron's hot. And my fear is if you don't
Yep.
take care of all the voting methods as well as so he's take care of those. He has buttoned up the border, but now we've plugged it all up, but now you got to get the water that's already got into the ship. You got to remove it. And if you don't do that, that's going to be a vector of attack that's exploited and amplified. And in 5 years and 10 years, we might go, yeah, Trump got in a second time, but then they stole the 2028 election. They were counting for 50 days. And that's what I fear is just that it's going to go by quickly. And then if you can do that, if you can manipulate the actual process by which you put people into power, you can just
Right.
executive order everything Trump did out of here. And then it will just be a rose-colored memory we have of, remember when we thought, yeah, it was a miracle. Trump got in, and then it all just, now it's 2035, and,
You're,
it's a police state. So I know I'm rambling, but
you're,
that's where
you're
I
you're absolutely correct. It could all disappear very soon. In
very
fact,
quickly.
it could disappear in 20 months.
Yeah, no, it could be not even 4 years. It could, yeah, that's my
Yeah, two
point. Is
years.
like
Yeah,
dial it up.
because if Trump loses the midterms with the Congress and Senate, he's going to have a hard time hanging on to any of this. But I'm proud of what he's trying to do. And I hope within the next 2 to 4 years that the American people will wake up and see what he's doing is working and that he's exposing such utter corruption in Washington, D.C. And I've been complaining about that for 20 years. And it is so totally corrupt that the corrupt people, part of this problem, are now going after him with a vengeance, saying what he's doing is despicable and disgraceful and a disaster because he's trying to stop what they're doing with the taxpayers' money. And I'm going to say number one on the list, the most corrupt spending that has been going on for a couple of decades now is that taxpayers are forced to pay money to Planned Parenthood. And they get over $700 million a year, $1.5 billion every 2 years from taxpayer dollars to a private organization that provides no government service whatsoever. None. In fact, quite the opposite when you consider that our entire government is supposed to be based on protecting life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Well, the IRS has pretty much destroyed our right to the fruit of our own labors. So they've destroyed that. IRS needs to be abolished and Planned Parenthood needs to be defunded. I'm not saying Planned Parenthood can't exist. I personally find it very immoral that they do, but I cannot stop them from existing until we maybe make abortion illegal. However, I don't believe that's going to happen. But we certainly can make the corrupt money that they receive from taxpayers. We can stop that, and it should be. And in fact, I don't even care where people line up on pro-life, pro-choice, pro-death, whatever it is. That's not what I'm talking about right now. I'm simply talking about proper expenditures from taxpayers. Can it be funneled to a private organization? If that's legal, then I'm wondering when my organization, the CSPOA, the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association, which we focus on protecting civil rights for all people, why am I not funded by the federal government? And Planned Parenthood is. Why?
Well,
Why
yeah.
the discrepancy there? I don't want to be funded by the federal government because it's illegal. And yet they proudly do this with several different NGOs across the country. And the worst one, obviously, Planned Parenthood, because they get so much money and they provide no government service to the American people. That is as illegal as you can get.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm very disappointed that my podcast is not funded. You know, I got banned from YouTube and
Yeah,
iTunes.
let's fund all of them.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I got banned from YouTube and iTunes back in 2021 for talking about COVID vaccines and then election fraud and then the
yeah,
withdrawal from Afghanistan, Iraq, and I haven't gotten a penny. And I always just figured, oh, those are private companies, and then it slowly comes out about the Twitter files and the DHS and the
yeah.
FBI having
You're not
backdoors
supposed to be
into.
funded by taxpayers. You can get grants or other funding. I mean, people could donate to you, but you and I cannot accept taxpayer
Correct.
dollars for what we're doing, even though it's a great service.
It's
This
a
is a great service what you provide.
it's a
But
it's been this gradual progression of like me trying to be reasonable. Be like, well, they banned me for these things, and I still do believe it. I'm like, but those are private companies, and when I say they're private
yeah,
companies, that's not because I like them. It's because I look at my own show and go, in 20 years, when my podcast is huge, do I want people to be able to
mhm,
say Tommy hasn't interviewed this person? No, I want to be able to say it's a private company. Screw you.
yeah,
I look at that, and then you slowly realize, with all these files and disclosures, you go, oh, well, the government was actually using these things as a puppet to parade as a
yeah,
private company, but it was actually a suppression of the First Amendment. And then it goes even, and just when I thought I couldn't be like, hey, gobsmacked enough, Trump gets in office and they start gutting USAID, and you go, not only was I being censored, the other things were being artificially inflated, and not with a private company, with my money. And then you start
mhm,
going, yeah, and that's why it comes back to me being so rabid of like, build a DMZ on the northern and southern borders, kick them all. I don't care. It's anger at this point. But I just pulled up the article, or one of the things. So Eric Prince saying he laid out a 26-page document, blah 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 blah. Rapidly deport 12 million people before the 2026 midterms. $25 billion is what it would cost, and they would increase activity by 600%. They would use, I think, something like 10 or 20,000 mercenaries, as well as 1,000 planes and like 5,000 lawyers. But $25 billion, I feel like they've already saved that through the Department of Government Efficiency at this point, and just because I want to hold his feet to the fire, if Trump doesn't do this, then it makes me think that he was
right,
never truly, because it's laid out in front of him now. There's really no excuse. You
right,
have Eric. It's like, who's Eric Prince? What is he, a baker? No, no, no. That's the guy that started Blackwater XC. He's done this
right,
before in literal war zones. I've had on Blackwater mercenaries. Say what you want about Eric Prince. He runs a tight ship. The offer's there. He's willing to do it, and not only that, you provide jobs, and you've already saved the money. I mean, at this point, if it doesn't happen, I don't think the political will ever be there. If Trump can't do it after
yeah.
surviving an
It's
assassination and a stolen election,
right.
and that's so again. It's not that I dislike it. I wanted to see. It's also very selfish. I'm 34 years old. I have on a lot of guys that are like, I'm in my 70s, so, I don't know.
Man,
I'll see it, right? And no, you're going, hey, what's
34. I remember being 34 once. Man, oh man.
yeah.
But I'll tell you what, nobody could beat me in basketball when I was 34. But
I
they
was
sure
pretty.
can now.
I was well. I'm short, but I was pretty good back in middle school and high school. We grew up. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's my dad instilled the godliness of Larry Bird in us. But my point
yeah,
is that sometimes I'll have on these guys and they're like, but I'm more focused on hanging out with my grandkids. I'm like, that's sweet. That's all well and good. I'm 34 years old. I still have a really long life ahead of me. I don't want to see this thing collapse into a communist hellhole. So like,
well, it would
that's
have.
why I'm so rabid.
You and I would be discussing how we provide any defense to the Marxism and communism take over America if Kamala had won. And that's what we were really fighting. And I'm glad you recognize that for what it was, because that's the scariest thing that
Yeah,
we came very close
yeah.
to losing and turning America into a communist country.
So
And that still worries me because it's still there.
well,
And
it's
so many people are embracing that theology.
it's still there, but luckily I think that's what most people, as someone that interviews people from all walks of life, and then, I get to see it distributed through their circles. So I get it. I guess more so than an average person. I get to see kind of the pulse of different communities very frequently. I have no control over them, and I make next to no money off of it, and that's no good.
Yeah.
But I get to see it, and you can see trends change. Again, been doing this show for 5 years. You can see the virulent resistance to talking about COVID vaccines or where it came from,
Mhm.
to it's
Yeah.
a hot topic, hot button topic, to people want to entertain it, to people are hungry for it, to it becomes very evident what happened. And that's
Right.
what I've seen over the past couple of years of doing this show, is it's pretty well accepted. Your average person, your average guest, regardless of the topic, they'll tell you on air, off air, whoever, accountants, doctors, they'll be like, yeah, no, we got within a hair of a dictatorship.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah, it was. I mean, in a way, there was, like I said, that 80% of the counties voted for Trump. It was still very close in a lot of respects. If 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 three swing states had gone the other way, it could have very well been Kamala winning. So we're talking about just three swing states, Pennsylvania being one of them. And so yeah, I never thought Trump was going to win. I thought it'd be too good to be true.
I thought it was gonna be stolen.
Uh,
Yeah.
but I'm so grateful he did, because it's bought us some time,
So
and it is bought our country some time to see what following the rules and the rule of law really can do for our country, and cutting taxes and cutting the size of government and getting government out of our lives and off our backs. And I want to quote Ronald Reagan right there. Ronald Reagan called it absolutely correct back in the 1980s when he said, government is not the solution to the problem. Government is the problem. And folks, that's why the Constitution was devised with three branches of government to keep each other in check. And it's a intricate system of checks and balances. And yes, the states and the governors and the sheriffs are part of that, the checks and balances. A sheriff should tell federal agents, including FBI and IRS, you're not going to come into my county and do that again. In fact, before you ever come into my county again, you notify me first and let me know what you're doing here. And why we have the authority to come in any place else. We have national authority. No, you don't. You're a bureaucrat from Washington, D.C. And you have the authority to investigate 5 law enforcement powers delegated to you by the states. And let me say those right now. 5 law enforcement powers are delegated by the states within the Constitution to the federal government. They are: 1, treason. That's a federal offense. It can also be a state crime. Counterfeiting. That is a federal offense. Law enforcement and the federal government can investigate that. 3, felonies committed on the high seas or piracies. Those are federal offenses. 4, they quote, shall protect our borders from invasion. That is a law enforcement authority. And then kind of an innocuous one is violations of treaties. So if we have a treaty with Canada, somebody violates that treaty, that's a federal offense. That's all they get. According to the 10th Amendment, they get nothing else. The powers not delegated to the federal government remain with the states or the people. So folks, the states have got to do their job, the governors, the sheriffs, and put the stop sign up. You're not going to do that here over my dead body. And it's not a violent issue. It's a interposition. It's the sheriffs putting themselves in the way to make sure that their citizens are being protected, especially their civil rights. And it's all about Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King was arrested over 30 times by corrupt government officials, some sheriffs. Rosa Parks was arrested by 2 cops for not giving her seat to a white man. We don't do that anymore. But now we have the government going after Amish farmers because they refuse, or their belief, not refuse, their religious belief is they don't pasteurize their milk. So what does the government do? The FDA and other governments go in and destroy their farms, destroy their products, and raid their families in front of their kids and destroy their farm and their livelihood. This kind of cruelty and this kind of tyranny has got to stop. And I think we have a huge opportunity to take our country back to its constitutional foundation with President Donald J. Trump.
And that's, I mean, it's something you always hear, growing up. But I think even for me, primarily the benefit of the last 4 years, the silver lining of the last 4 years,
Yeah,
was it was no longer just something your grandpa told you. You actually start to see, oh, the people in government genuinely hate you, your way of life, your beliefs, your traditions, the things you hold near and dear. You're
yeah,
but I'm just an Amish guy. No, 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 no. They will raid your house with the FBI in front of your children with guns drawn. And so back
yeah,
to kind of the bigger picture of this entire discussion that you and I are having is, so we saw all of that, and the average person, like I told you, is just like, yeah, no, we came very close. So what is the upside of that? What's the importance of that? Yeah, we all came very close. My point is the average person is very aware of how, not only how bad things got before the very eyes and ears over the last 4 years, but how close it got to being this way eternally. Trump comes
yeah,
back in. Sure, the election map shows there's a mandate, but there's also and there's a pulse, there's a mandate of the average person going, yeah, I'm okay with drastic action. So not only do you
yeah,
have to do this stuff to make sure that it's, the entire voting system isn't hijacked over the coming years and decades, but you also have a win. You couldn't have done this in 2016. You couldn't have done this in 2004. The political capital and the will was not there.
right. It wasn't.
There's a will. So not only do you have to have the guy in office to legally do it, but there is a. I think even if you went back to 2017, March
Well, if you look,
2017, yeah,
yeah, well, look back at Trump winning after Obama. Obama was the reason Trump won.
yeah.
Trump wasn't a politician. They were sick and tired of liars. They were sick and tired of Obama's corruption. And people wanted to know why Trump won. Barack Obama. And this time it was Biden.
Well, precisely. So it's not only that you have to do this so that the voting doesn't, become hijacked again. It's, you don't have, I think even if you went back to March 2017, 8 years ago, early first term, I think if
Mhm.
they started mass deport, I don't know if the average I think you, probably myself included, would have been like, it's a little far. You have a window now of people who are willing to just go, yeah, no, get rid of everything. I don't care.
Yeah,
End what we saw, and because we've seen now
right.
the progression of work. It doesn't end with bake my cake. It ends with a grown man in a thong and a bra with a blue wig dancing in front of children at a strip club.
Yeah.
And if you think there's a problem with that, you're a bigot. We've seen where it
Yeah.
goes. So not only does it have to be done logistically and statistically, there's a will that exists now that might not even exist in 2 years. So I think that's why I keep kind of hammering it home. Like, you have to do it now. The will.
Yeah.
It's like New Year's Day. New year, new me. You're going to the gym. It's like, that's great. The will is there. While we're at it, like, clean your house. You're going to the gym for the first time in a year.
Yeah.
While we're moving, you're at the grocery store. You're inspired. Get some vegetables. Like, the iron's hot. Hit it. Bend it. And so that's where I know I'm a broken record, but that's why I keep saying it's like, you got to do it now. You got to do it.
Well, that's why I want everybody to understand you can't become complacent. We've got lots of work to do. We need the sheriffs and the people getting on board with helping Trump, not just with deportation, but other things. The return. It's this America's not going to be successful if we keep using, oh, we've got to move forward. No, we don't. We got to move back. The solution is behind us. It's in our history. It's at Independence Hall. We've got to return to the Constitution and to our foundational principles. Return to our foundation is the solution. We, the people, have got to be involved in that. The sheriffs and the states have got to be involved in that. And we at the CSPOA offer an opportunity for everybody to join us in doing this. So join at cspoa.org. Join our posse. Yes, we need all of you on our posse so that we can help train you to be on your sheriff's posse. Okay? And I've been a sheriff. I've been part of this movement for 30 years. And I know what the solution is to keep it peaceful and effective. And we, the people, have got to be part of that. And we offer you an opportunity to do that on a silver platter. Yes, being part of our posse is, wow, $11 a month. Everybody does. This blesses you. It blesses us. That's the only way we get funding. And that's the way we keep going. And we do seminars all over. Our next one's going to be in Washington so we can attack the governor's office and the legislature that's trying to destroy the office of sheriff there. They're completely trying to take it over. In King County, they've already stopped electing the sheriff. He's only appointed now in one of the biggest counties in Washington. So, and probably the biggest. So, folks, we offer you a chance to be part of the solution, to be part of restoring our Constitution as the supreme law of the land. If we're not involved, it's not going to happen. And what did the founding fathers say? The last line of the Declaration of Independence. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. We must do likewise today, my friends. If we're going to have a chance to keep this momentum going and to return our country to its Constitution, then we must be involved. If you're just listening to this great program, say, man, Tommy was great today, Sheriff Mack was great, got to share it with my friends, and then that's the end of it. No, this is the beginning of it. We've got to get involved. We've got to have Trump's back, and the best people to have Trump's back are the sheriffs of these United States. And so that's my proposal, that's my plea, and that is my hope for America.
That was awesome. And for everybody listening, the links to that are in the description. All your links are in the description. Sheriff, I'd love to have you on again sometime, man. That was a blast.
Let's do it, Tommy. There's going to be always something to talk about, I guarantee you.
Beautiful. Yeah, man. Don't be a stranger. That was fun, and
All right.
you survived the like I told you beforehand. Just fire from the hip, nothing planned. It's always the best way to go, and they're the best conversations. But, dude,
Well, thank you, Tommy. Appreciate you having me.
yes, sir. You're a cool guy. I'd love to have you on again sometime, and thank you so much for your time. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
sir.